Can you believe it? I got an insanely handsome boyfriend just by buying a sofa. And to top it off, he's my new boss. How thrilling is that? Kimu. Never thought we'd meet again, did you? Mr. Liu, it's not what you think. I put on an earnest face and broke into a goofy grin. Oh. Then what is it? I'm listening, explain yourself. Mr. Liu folded his arms across his chest, watching me with lazy amusement. His full name is Liu Li, the newly appointed director of my department. I'd been waiting with bated breath for over a month, practically on my knees, praying the new director would save me from my work hell. Who would have guessed I'd end up with such an arch enemy instead? It all started yesterday. Yesterday was my big moving day. I'd invited all my besties, okay? Fine, my ragtag crew of friends to help me relocate. I'd saved up for years, plus a generous chunk of money from my parents, and finally bought a tiny apartment near the company. My plan? Live the single girl dream. Hit the clubs every night and maybe spoil a cute younger guy. I was dead set on finding a sweet boy toy to show everyone how much fun a cool older sister could be. To sell the rich and carefree vibe, I decided to splurge on myself first. But right when I was about to pay, my last shred of sanity kicked in. Forget it. I don't want it. The salesgirl behind the counter gave me that look, the one that screamed, I knew you were just a broke poser pretending to be loaded. Unfazed, I lifted my chin haughtily. I think I'll go to Hermes and do some shopping for qualifying items instead. Then I slunk off to the home furnishing store in the next mall. Little did I know, this was where I'd run into my arch enemy. My boss. If God gave me a do-over, I'd gladly trade 20 pounds of my weight to erase this mistake. My new place was only missing one thing. A sofa. So I'd headed there to pick one out. I'd just settled on a brand new sofa, and was about to snap a photo to send Jojo for her opinion, when Bam Liu Li appeared out of nowhere, blocking my view. And he had zero intention of moving. I even cleared my throat loudly to hint that he was in my way. But he didn't budge an inch. Annoyed, I pocketed my phone, marched over, and accidentally bumped into him, then lost my balance and plopped down onto the sofa. I shot him a cocky look, tossed him a flirty wink, and flashed a perfect fake smile showing all 8 teeth. I casually brushed back my greasy, unwashed hair. Why did I leave the house without shampooing? And said, Sir, this sofa's pretty great, huh? Too bad it's mine now. If I could turn back time, I'd never be this cringy. Because the second I got a good look at his face, I wanted to cover my entire head with a mask. Not because he was someone I knew, no. Liu Li was devastatingly, outrageously handsome. But the way he looked at me, that half smirk on his lips, I swear I could feel sparks shooting out of his eyes, like he was about to incinerate me on the spot, and turn me into a spectacular firework. Before I could recover from the shock, a woman walked up to me. She bowed at a perfect 90-degree angle and apologized profusely. The sofa I was sitting on, she explained, had already been bought by Liu Li. It was a limited edition piece, one of a kind, and they needed to pack it up for delivery. Could I please check out the other styles? Awkward. So incredibly awkward. To make matters worse, when I stood up, my hand slipped, and my phone fell right onto my nose. As if my already not-so-high nose bridge needed another beating. I knew I shouldn't make things hard for the salesgirl. I was always a polite, reasonable, and considerate person. Usually. But I'd already run my mouth off like that. To slink away now would be way too humiliating. So I made a bold decision. I turned to Liu Li and said, Would you mind if this sofa had 2 owners? The second the words left my mouth, both Liu Li and the salesgirl froze, looking absolutely stunned. Liu Li processed my words for a moment, then said solemnly, If you really want it that badly, I'll let you have it. Yes, exactly what I was hoping for. I jumped up, beaming with triumph, and declared righteously, Never mind. This sofa isn't even worthy of my affection. You can keep it. I was practically skipping as I turned to leave, feeling like I just won the jackpot. Then I stepped on a grapeskin. Can you believe it? A grapeskin here, of all places. Naturally, I slipped. Karma really works fast, doesn't it? And to make it worse, I'd worn a white dress today. The last thing I wanted was to faceplant onto the floor in a full 180-degree faceplant. In a blind panic, I reached out with my right hand and grabbed onto Liu Li's collar, and pulled him down with me. Of course, He was the one who ended up as my human cushion. I swear on my life. Kimu, had never done anything this reckless before. The silence that followed was so awkward you could cut it with a knife. I scrambled to my feet and tried to help Luli up, but he just glanced at me coolly and said, "I'll remember this. We'll be seeing a lot more of each other." He practically spat the words through gritted teeth. If I'd known a lot more of each other meant seeing him at the office today, I would have handed in my resignation and fled the city overnight. I was the kind of person who helped elderly folks cross the street and rescued stray dogs. It was my new neighborhood. But as my brain scrambled to process this, I couldn't help but think, this was such a ridiculous, bizarre, cliché coincidence. And then I looked at Luli's gorgeous face again. Could it be that romance was finally coming my way? I let out a silly chuckle. Luli handed me a tissue. "Wipe your drool." How embarrassing. Never mind. Never mind. Younger guys were way simpler, no scheming, just pure innocence. I steeled my resolve. I was not going to fall for this man's charms. I thought that was the end of it. Drop him off, then hightail it home. But Luli hit me with an even more outrageous request. He said, "Since you like that sofa so much, why not help me assemble it?" I refused without hesitation. I'd already been tricked once by his pretty face. Once was more than enough. The second I got out of the car, I ran home as fast as my legs could carry me. I never thought the world could be this small. Arch enemy turned boss, how was I supposed to survive at work from now on? I tossed and turned all night, then decided to swallow my pride and play nice. The next day, I held a huge stack of documents and walked into Luli's office, bowing respectfully. "Mr. Liu, let's just let bygones be bygones, shall we? Since you're new here, I've prepared all the materials you'll need." Luli gave me that half smirk again and told me to put them down. Then he dismissed me. That's it. Guess there really was some truth to the saying, "You don't hit a smiling face." I quickly texted my bestie Jojo, "The weather is perfect tonight, let's meet at the pub at 9. "Deal," Jojo replied. I spent the rest of the day being on my best behavior, counting down the minutes until off time, half expecting Luli to call me into his office for some petty revenge. But he never did. Phew. I've been worrying for nothing. I packed up my things, ready to bolt. But just then, a message popped up in the department group chat from Luli. "Let's go out for dinner tonight to celebrate my first day." The group chat exploded with excitement. Everyone was gushing about how awesome the new boss was. I really didn't want to go, especially not after offending him so badly. But then Luli typed another message. "Anyone who can't make it, just let me know in advance." My colleague Fei replied instantly. "How could we miss it? It's our boss's first day." I wanted to fire her on the spot, but I just sent a frosty smiley emoji instead. At dinner, all the girls turned into detectives, grilling Luli about his life. They practically wanted to jig up his entire family tree. Typical women. "Looks like the food isn't to your liking." Luli, who was sitting right next to me, suddenly spoke up. I'd been zoning out, daydreaming about my future, or lack thereof, and his voice made me jump. I fumbled my chopsticks, and they clattered to the floor. I bent down to pick them up, but Luli said, "Don't bother, grab a new pair." "It's fine," I mumbled. When I looked up, I moved too fast and hit my head hard on the edge of the table. The whole table shook. I clutched my head, tears welling up in my eyes. It hurt like hell. I heard Luli snort softly beside me. Clumsy. My frustration got the better of me. I glared at him through my tears, then stood up abruptly and stormed off to the bathroom. But as I stood up, disaster struck again. I just had to ask, didn't anyone as mom ever teach them to clean up after themselves? Couldn't they have at least stacked the empty beer bottles neatly? Why did I always end up stepping on this kind of random junk? Luckily, I reacted quickly and grabbed onto the back of my chair. But since no one was sitting on it, it didn't give me any support. My brain raced. Better to beg Luli for help than to faceplant in front of the entire department. So I did the most unglamorous thing possible. I reached out with my left hand and grabbed onto Luli's chair. I could practically hear his inner monologue. Finally, a chance to get revenge. Because the jerk moved his chair right at that moment. I mentally cursed his entire family. But here's the thing, I didn't faceplant. But honestly, I wished I had. Because Lu Li had suddenly pulled his chair away. So I missed the back of it. But he did reach out and yank me hard enough that my other side couldn't to keep up. And I ended up kneeling on the floor. And my head hit right between his legs. I wanted to cry from the sheer embarrassment of this position. Kimu, are you okay? Lu Li asked, his voice soft. But I could hear the laughter he was trying to hold back. I gritted my teeth and forced out 2 words. Fine. I seriously considered faking a faint, but let's be real, I was way too tall and clumsy to pull off a graceful faint. So I abandoned the idea. Lu Li held out his other hand and pulled me up, then helped me sit back down. Everyone gathered around, asking if I was hurt. Even though I'd cursed Lu Li 1,000 times in my head, I forced a smile and said, I'm fine. Thanks to Mr. Lu for saving me. I rubbed the throbbing bump on my head and wanted to die. In the bathroom, I stared at my pathetic, disheveled reflection in the mirror, then pulled out my phone and texted Jojo. Me. I might get fired by my boss before he even gets a chance to give me a hard time. I've been so unlucky lately. Should I go to the temple this weekend to pray for good luck? Jojo. Girl, you're a college graduate. You should be going to the hospital to get your head checked, not a temple. Me. Fair point. I should also get my heart checked while I'm at it. Wanna come with? Jojo. You know I have to go home every weekend for my mom's cooking. Wanna join us for dinner? Might as well be walking into my own funeral. Just as I finished texting Jojo, Fei sent me a message. Sister Moo. Did you fall into the toilet? Do you need me to rescue you? What's meant to be will be. I straightened my hair and walked back out. When I returned to the table, everyone was chatting and laughing loudly. Some were even tipsy. Lu Li had clearly had a lot to drink too. His cheeks were flushed, and his eyes were a little hazy. He looked surprisingly sexy. No. Ooh. Why was I thinking that? I needed to snap out of it. Fei, who was usually such a heavy drinker, being from northeast China and all, had barely touched her glass. She shyly told me she was planning to take Lu Li home after he got drunk. I looked at her love-struck face and shuddered. Young people really were so easy to fool with a pretty face. The dinner finally ended late at night. Lu Li called a designated driver. I could have easily taken a taxi home myself, but Fei, desperate to butter Lu Li up, dragged me along with her. My urge to fire her grew even stronger. As soon as we got in the car, Fei eagerly told the driver her address. Being a fresh graduate, she was practically bouncing in her seat with excitement. Mr. Lu, you don't look a day over 20. You're like a college student. Fei gushed. Yeah, right. Did college guys ever hold grudges like this? You look young too, still in school? Lu Li replied. Smooth talker. Typical, knew exactly how to make girls happy. Mr. Lu, do you have a girlfriend right now? Fei asked, blushing. Lu Li's gaze flicked to me, like he was saying this for my benefit, and answered. I'm single. Fei's smile was so big her eyes almost disappeared. She leaned over and whispered in my ear. I totally have a chance. After all, everyone said girls who smiled a lot were lucky. I looked up and our eyes met. Lu Li smiled at me. I felt a chill run down my spine and quickly looked away. After dropping off the lovesick Fei, it was just me and Lu Li left in the car. Help me. My mom saved my life. It was almost midnight when I answered her call. Mum, let me guess, you just finished mahjong, didn't you? My mum's voice was practically bouncing off the walls with excitement. Moo. Your love life is finally going to take off. I met a mahjong buddy today. Her nephew just came back from abroad, single and a total high-flying elite. I already introduced you to him. I should have known this was why she was calling me so late. I glanced at Lu Li in the front seat and lowered my voice. Mum, I'm only 25. It's not like I'm running out of time. When fate knocks, you have to open the door. He's a domineering CEO, okay? Honestly, what on earth were these middle-aged women watching these days? Fine. I get it. I'm hanging up now. Great. I'll arrange your blind date right away. I'm off to my beauty sleep, bye-bye. I hung up the phone, only to hear Lu Li say, Got a date this weekend. Lu Li, were you seriously eavesdropping? I ignored him. The drive home felt infinitely longer than usual. As soon as we got near the neighborhood gate, I asked Luli to let me out. I popped into the 24-hour convenience store to buy some snacks, then slowly made my way home. And then my heart sank. I couldn't find my keys. I searched every pocket, but they were gone. I hadn't had time to make a spare yet, and the only other key was with my mom. If I went back to her place at this hour and interrupted her beauty sleep, she'd kill me. I squatted down on my doorstep, racking my brain to retrace my steps. I'd gone straight from work to the restaurant, hadn't touched my bag during dinner. Then I got in Luli's car and made that call. Could I have dropped them while talking on the phone? At this point, I didn't care about offending him anymore. I quickly sent him a voice message, but I accidentally hit the video call button instead. Before I could hang up, Luli answered, and there was his face handsome enough to rival Yang Yang's. I swear, I almost started drooling again. What's wrong? Luli's voice pulled me out of my daze. I put on my most innocent, cute voice. Mr. Liu, I'm so sorry to bother you again, but I think I left my keys on the back seat of your car. Could you please check for me? I'm locked out of my house right now. Wait a minute. Let me look. The silence on the video call was awkward. I tried to make small talk to fill the void. Mr. Liu, wanna hear a joke? Luli cleared his throat, probably shocked by my sudden change of tune. After a long pause, he said, Sure. I grinned triumphantly and launched into my joke. Mr. Liu, do you eat eggs? Yes. Then can you tell the difference between an egg laid by a hen and one laid by a rooster? Roosters don't lay eggs. Wow, Mr. Liu, you're so smart. I gushed sincerely. That's not a joke. Only people who get it wrong think it's funny. No wonder you're laughing so hard. Is there a little girl keychain on your keys? He asked suddenly. I jumped up from the ground, overjoyed. Yes, that's mine. Thank you so much, Mr. Liu. Which building do you live in? I'll come get it right away. Wait for me at your doorstep. My phone's about to die. I'll text you when I'm there. I stared at my phone for a few seconds after hanging up, still processing what had just happened. Oh my God, was my boss really going to personally bring my keys to my doorstep? The 5 minutes I waited for him felt like an eternity. My emotions swung from shock to joy to guilt to calmness, and then to confusion. Before I could figure out what was going on, Luli appeared in front of me. He held up my keys, twirling them around his finger. These yours? I grabbed them, thanking him profusely. Mr. Liu, you're a lifesaver. I really don't know how to thank you. And how about treating me to dinner? Luli said, not the least bit shy. Huh? We stared at each other. The air between us suddenly felt charged with something ambiguous. Then Luli smiled and said, next time. I should head up now. I bowed 90 degrees on the spot. Good night, Mr. Liu. Take care. I watched him walk into the elevator. Wait a second. Why was the elevator going up? Wait. Why did it stop at the 10th floor? I rubbed my eyes, but it was still stuck on the 10th floor. I felt like I'd just been hit with 10,000 points of damage. I still couldn't wrap my head around it when I finally collapsed onto my bed. That jerk, my boss, lived right above me. And how did he even know where I lived? Over the next few weeks, I finally resigned myself to the fact that Liu Li lived in the same neighborhood, and right upstairs from me. No less. At first, I tried to act like I didn't know, but our chance encounters were way too frequent. If I left the house at my usual time, I'd run into him. If I left early on purpose, I'd still run into him. Even if I dragged my feet and left late, I'd still bump into him. It was like he'd planted a tracker on my phone. Seeing him everywhere, at the office, at home, was seriously starting to get on my nerves. And to make things worse, every time we crossed paths, I'd end up hitching a ride to work with him. I tried to say no at first, but after a while, it felt rude to keep refusing. The most nerve-wracking part was getting out of the car every morning. I'd pull my mask up to cover half my face and tug my hat down low. Only when I de-scanned the area and confirmed there wasn't a single coworker within 50 meters would I dare step out. Or I'd insist he go first, wait a few minutes, then sneak into the office behind him, looking over my shoulder like a criminal. I'd even timed the elevator to avoid riding up with him. This tense, sneaky routine made me feel like I was having a secret affair with Liu Li. Thankfully, Friday finally rolled around. After the afternoon department meeting, there was nothing left to do. I was in a great mood as I packed up my things, humming a tune. But just as I reached the door, Luli called out to me. Ki-moo, come here for a second. My cheerful smile froze instantly. I took a deep breath, turned around, and put on my best fake grin. Mr. Liu, did you need something else? Come here. Luli's eyes were glued to his computer screen. He didn't even glance at my forced smile. Reluctantly, I trudged over. We'd already covered everything in the meeting. When he'd asked if anyone had objections, he hadn't said a word. Was he really just looking for an excuse to pick on me? No, I scolded myself. This was the same boss who gave me free rides to and from work every day. Mr. Liu, what can I do for you? I asked politely, leaning forward slightly with a pleasant expression. Li suddenly turned to look at me. Since I was bent over, our faces were way too close. I could even see his eyelashes, damn. They were long. What a heartthrob. Lost in thought, Li tapped a finger between my eyebrows, then leaned back, putting some distance between us. I laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of my neck. Li nodded at his computer screen. Have you analyzed this quarter's marketing data thoroughly? I followed his gaze to the report I'd compiled. Yes, I did. All my conclusions are written right below the charts. Is there a problem with it? Li pulled out the chair next to him. I sat down beside him, leaning in to explain my analysis in detail. After I talked for several minutes, he nodded slowly. Good. Then we can go over it together later. He said it so calmly, so casually. But my heart was pounding like a drum. Seeing that I didn't respond, Li folded his arms and smiled at me. Didn't you say you wanted to treat me to dinner as a thank you? How could someone ask for a free meal so unabashedly? But then I thought dinner with him was still better than staying late to work overtime. Though discussing work over food would probably give me indigestion, I suddenly missed my old boss, old Zhang. He wasn't much to look at, but he was kind and always looked out for his employees. When I got back to my desk, Fei leaned over, looking around furtively. Sister Mu, what did Mr. Liu keep you for? Is he asking you out on a date? Fresh graduates always so naive. I hung my head, packing my things listlessly. I shook my head and shot back indignantly. If it were a date, would I look this miserable? Your dreamy Mr. Liu is making me work overtime. It's Friday night. Why do we have to work overtime? I was supposed to go clubbing. Fei didn't say a word. Curious, I looked up. Oh no. Our dreamy Mr. Liu was leaning against my cubicle wall, listening. Fei gave me a sympathetic look, a thumbs up of encouragement, then scurried away, leaving me standing there, mortified. I snuck a glance at Li. His face was expressionless. I couldn't tell if he was angry or amused. I grabbed my bag, walked up to him, and put on my most ingratiating smile. Mr. Liu, what I meant was, since we're having dinner anyway, why don't you go clubbing afterward? Work up an appetite first, then dance it off. Perfect, right? Li raised an eyebrow, smirked, then turned and walked toward the door. I hurried after him, like an obedient puppy. If Jojo could see me now, she'd laugh at me until the end of time. But dinner was dinner, so why on earth did Li insist on driving all the way to the western suburbs? Why? Tell me why. I could already predict the drive back. Total silence, nothing but the sound of our breathing filling the car. Wait, thought sounded weirdly intimate. After parking the car, I walked beside Li, tail between my legs, and ventured to ask, Boss, if we eat dinner here and then go clubbing, we'll be out super late, won't we? Li shifted his gaze from straight ahead to me, looking down at me through his eyelashes. Oh, do you have other plans tonight? As if I dare make plans. I'd already mustered up all my courage to stand Jojo up again. No, dinner with you is the most important thing. I'm worried about your health, that's all. I gushed. They say early to bed and early to rise keeps the doctor away. You're so busy running the department you can't afford to get worn out. Oh, so you're worried about my health? That drawn-out tone. What was that supposed to mean? I kept up my silly smile, turning on the charm full force. Absolutely. Health is the foundation of all success. If you get tired, What will happen to our whole department? In that case, you should stay late with me every time I work overtime from now on. Wait, was I the fool here? Liu Li glanced back when he noticed I'd stopped walking. I sighed silently, then trotted to catch up with him. Being a competent subordinate was so hard. To my utter shock, Liu Li actually started chatting with me about his life over dinner. Unbelievable. He'd been a top student at a prestigious 985 university, studied abroad senior year, and only just returned recently. Wow, that's amazing. From now on, I can get you to translate my American shows for me, I exclaimed. Liu Li gave me a meaningful look. I quickly buried my head in my food, pretending to be busy eating. After dinner, Liu Li leaned back in his chair and told me to go pay the bill. Which was fine, I owed him for all those free rides after all. Treating him to dinner was the least I could do. But why did he make me stand in line at the movie theater afterward, balancing a soda in one hand and popcorn in the other? I thought we were going clubbing. And to make things worse, we were sitting in a couple's screening room, surrounded by couples making out left and right. I took a few sips of my soda, feeling more and more awkward. Just as I finished the last drop, Liu Li spoke up. That was my soda you were drinking. Oh, I'm so sorry. Should I go buy you another one? I asked, flustered. I started to stand up, but Liu Li grabbed my wrist and pulled me back down into my seat. It was sweltering summer, but where his skin touched mine, I felt a tingle like my wrist was burning. No need. Then Liu Li leaned in, his face suddenly filling my vision. Oh my God. Was he going to kiss me? I closed my eyes instinctively, my heart racing. But instead of kissing me, Liu Li reached past me, picked up the soda I'd been holding and took a sip. I bit my lower lip, feeling the heat from my wrist spread to my cheeks. I touched my burning face, mortified. What on earth had I been hoping for? But why did he drink from the same cup I had? Was he trying to hint at something? I was so distracted by this question that I barely paid attention to the movie. Half my brain was screaming, does Liu Li like me? While the other half insisted, no way. He's just messing with you. And why had I closed my eyes like that when he leaned in? I pressed a hand to my forehead, sighing. Liu Li's face was way too handsome, way too easy to fall for. By the time the movie ended, it was almost midnight. The summer night air carried a faint chill. Liu Li was wearing a light grey cardigan over his white shirt. Naturally, I assumed he was going to take it off and give it to me. Wasn't that what guys usually did in this situation? But instead, Liu Li took my hand, pulled me closer to him, then wrapped his arm around my shoulders. His warm, masculine scent surrounded me instantly, and the air between us felt thick with tension, thick with something more. Not cold anymore, are you? I wasn't cold, I was burning up. I was so flustered I couldn't speak. All I could do was nod dumbly and let him lead me forward, my feet moving like they had a mind of their own. We finally made it back to the car. Desperate to break the awkward silence, I pulled out my phone and texted Jojo. You want to believe what just happened? It was so intense. I almost got kissed. Jojo replied with a voice message immediately. I'd put my phone to my ear without thinking. Then Jojo's voice blared out from the speaker, loud and clear. You got kissed? Silence. Silence fell like a curtain over the car. I glanced at Liu Li in a panic. To my shock, he was smiling. What are the odds I'd survive if I jumped out of this car right now? I asked, deadpan. You won't get the chance to find out, Liu Li replied. Why not? I locked the doors. I threw caution to the wind, deciding to just ask him straight out. Mr. Liu, do you like me? Took you long enough to figure it out, he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I bit back a laugh, grinning cheekily. So, does this mean you want me to be your girlfriend? Liu Li slowed down the car, thinking for a moment before he answered. Or we could think long term. My heart skipped a beat, then started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. You said Capricorns were all quiet and reserved. Ever since we met, Liu Li had been anything but the cold, aloof heartthrob I'd imagined. But when it came to being thick-skinned, he still had a lot to learn. Then why didn't you just say so earlier? Why did I have to be the one to ask? This time, Liu Li didn't answer with words. He simply lifted his right hand, covered my left hand where it rested on my lap, and laced our fingers together. I knew it, I exclaimed, holding up our intertwined hands triumphantly. You drove all the way out here just to spend more time with me, didn't you? Luli leaned in slightly, his eyes darkening. I've always preferred to be direct. I just remembered something, I said, grinning. Oh. Luli raised an eyebrow, amused. Even if you're ugly, you still need love to make the whole world a more loving place. ... To my satisfaction, Luli did take off his cardigan and give it to me after we got out of the car. In return, I linked my arm through his, playing the grateful girlfriend as we walked home together. As the elevator was about to reach the 9th floor, my floor, Luli suddenly leaned down and kissed me. I was so shocked by how fast things were moving that my eyes flew wide open, staring at him in surprise. Luli didn't deepen the kiss. He pulled away just as the elevator doors slid open, then let me step out. I didn't dare look back at him. I just ran to my door, fumbled with my keys, and locked myself inside. I collapsed onto my bed, my face still burning. It must have been way too long since I'd been in a relationship. One single kiss had my heart racing like a schoolgirl. Adult relationships really were so fast, so simple, so direct. I couldn't help but giggle to myself. Luli lived right upstairs. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before we took things to the next level, if you know what I mean. In my defense, I really hadn't planned on going to Luli's place so soon. I swear it on my life. But the second I walked through his front door, I didn't hesitate. I flopped face first onto his sofa. I stroked the fabric affectionately, cooing like a crazy person. Mommy, so sorry you had to go through all that, baby. Come here and let Mommy hold you. I nuzzled my face into the cushions, rubbing my cheek against the soft material. Luli stared at me like I'd lost my mind. I plopped down beside him, looking at him with big, hopeful eyes. But instead of kissing me, Luli held up one finger and pushed my head away. Alone together in his apartment, with all that sexual tension in the air. And he was playing hard to get? Was it because my chest wasn't big enough? Or my waist wasn't small enough? Undeterred, I snuggled up to him again, shameless as ever. I lifted his arm, then leaned my head against his chest. Not bad. What did he look like under his shirt? Did he have abs? Pecs? I raised my hand, ready to find out, only to have Luli catch my wrist mid-movement. I looked up at him, feigning disappointment. There was a mosquito right there. Ooh, now you've scared it away. Oh, really? Thank you so much for saving me, Luli said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. No problem at all, I replied cheerfully. Lying through my teeth was practically my superpower after all. Afraid I'd try to attack him again, Luli laced his fingers through mine, holding my hand tightly. Being a flirtatious tease was kind of fun. I decided to keep the conversation going. Luli, how many girlfriends have you had before me? I couldn't help but marvel at how quickly things had changed. Just yesterday he was Mr. Lou, untouchable, off limits. Today, I was calling him by his first name, no hesitation. It was a small step for our relationship, but a giant leap for me. Himu. Then how many boyfriends have you had before me? Luli countered, raising an eyebrow. Let me count. I pulled my hand free and started ticking off my fingers. 1, 2, 3. Lost count. Probably 5, 6, maybe 7. I said it proudly, grinning from ear to ear. Luli just raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. You've been dating since you were a kid, huh? Hey, a girl's gotta have options. I'm just naturally charming, I boasted, flipping my hair dramatically. Is that so? He drawled. I lay down, resting my head on his lap, and looked up at him with a silly grin. Luli, were you a virgin before me? The next second, his lips crashed down on mine, cutting me off mid-sentence. The kiss was soft and lingering. I opened my eyes, gazing at Luli. His eyes were closed, and his long eyelashes cast delicate shadows on his cheeks. I reached out, my fingers brushing gently against his eyes. Luli caught my hand, lacing his fingers through mine, then slowly opened his eyes and pulled away from the kiss. He looked at me, that familiar half-smirk playing on his lips. I buried my face in the crook of his neck, my voice muffled against his skin. Luli, I feel like I've hit the jackpot. Oh, Is that so? Hadn't I just a handsome boyfriend who drove me to and from work every day? Total win. Before I could elaborate, my phone rang. It was Mom. Moo moo. It's all set. 2 p.m. this afternoon. I'll text you the address. Dress nicely, don't embarrass me. I've seen photos of that overseas educated guy. He's the kind of handsome you'd never even dare to dream of. I'd completely forgotten about the blind date. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling, and turned to look at Lu Li, panic written all over my face. I can explain. No need, go get ready. We're going together. Wait, Lu Li, that's not right. I'll just call and cancel. It's fine. Come on. We'll make it a lunch date. Before I could protest, I found myself herded into the car by Lu Li, who drove us straight to the address Mom had sent. Who the hell brought their boyfriend to a blind date? Sure, Lu Li was drop-dead gorgeous, but if Mum saw us together like this, she'd kill me. I tugged at his sleeve, panic rising in my throat. Lu Li, my mom is scary. If she sees us like this, she might actually have a heart attack. Lu Li raised an eyebrow, amused. Is that so? Can you wait for me outside? I'll be in and out in 5 minutes tops. Fine by me. I let out a huge sigh of relief. Don't go anywhere. 5 minutes, promise. Lu Li folded his arms, smiling as he watched me scurry into the restaurant. The second I walked in, Mom glared at me, her expression a mix of disgust and exasperation. You're hopeless. You're gonna blow this chance at a good match. If only she knew how happy that made me. I struggled to hide my grin. How long until he gets here? I'll leave right after we meet. My voice was practically bubbling with excitement. Mum ignored me, pulling out her makeup bag to touch up her own face. No doubt to make up for my casual outfit. I'd barely been sitting for 5 minutes when a woman walked in. She was curvy but undeniably beautiful. She greeted Mom warmly, and to keep Mom from losing a potential mahjong buddy, I put on my friendliest smile and said hello. Oh my goodness. So this is Kimu. She's such a sweet girl, so polite and pretty. The woman gushed. My son will be here any minute. He ran out to buy something. Sorry to keep you waiting. I shot Mom a questioning look. Me, I thought it was her nephew, not her son. Mom, mahjong buddies stick together. It's no problem at all, Auntie. Let's order first while we wait, I said cheerfully. The woman seemed thoroughly charmed by me, smiling and chatting away happily. A twinge of guilt mixed with amusement tugged at my heart. Who knew I was such a catch on the dating market? But my joy was short-lived. The next thing I knew, Lu Li walked through the door, holding a small bouquet of flowers. He looked so elegant, so handsome, with that easy smile on his lips. This man was way too good-looking for his own good. But this was not the time or place. I quickly covered my face with my hands and stammered, "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." I stood up, ready to bolt, but Lu Li was faster. He walked straight over to me, pulled me back into my seat, and smiled as he handed me the flowers. First meeting. For you. I stared at him in shock. The blind date was Lu Li. We'd only just confirmed our relationship, but this blind date had somehow morphed into an impromptu engagement party. Mum and Lu Li's mom dove straight into planning our future. How many kids we'd have? Who would take care of them, completely ignoring the two of us sitting there? Lu Li's mom was practically begging me to call her mom, on the spot. I spent the entire meal on edge, but Lu Li looked perfectly relaxed, like he was right where he belonged. I couldn't help but wonder maybe he was the one who hit the jackpot by picking me. After lunch, Mom and Lu Li's mom left arm in arm, chattering like long-lost sisters, planning a shopping spree together. As they walked away, they threw us a meaningful look. Meaningful for who? Once we were back at Lu Li's place, I finally found my voice, staring at him in disbelief. Wait a second. Did you set this up? Lu Li just looked at me, a faint smile playing on his lips. You really are hopelessly slow, aren't you? What was that supposed to mean? It wasn't until Lu Li's hand drifted lower, brushing against my chest, that I finally put two and two together. Was I about to lose my innocence tonight? I pushed his face away, swatting his hand away playfully. Hey, what's this hand doing? Lu Li feigned innocence, his voice deadpan. Probably enjoying itself. I threw a pillow at him, scoffed and marched toward the door. Honestly, living right upstairs from each other. What was the point of running away after a fight? You'd never get far. I filled Jojo in on everything that had happened, but she completely ignored my panic, demanding to see photos of Lu Li instead. As soon as she saw his picture, she sent me a jealous emoji, typing furiously, "Ki-moo, you've hit the ultimate jackpot in this life." Ooh. Was this really my best friend? Here I was, panicking about potentially losing my virtue, and she only cared about how handsome my boyfriend was. Jojo just laughed it off, texting me, "Early or late, you were gonna do it eventually. And if he's all looks and no substance, just return him." Somehow, her words made perfect sense. I suddenly regretted storming off so quickly. At exactly 10 p.m., I was just about to text Lu Li, asking if he wanted to grab a late-night snack, when his message popped up first word for word what I'd been about to say. Well, he'd given me the perfect excuse to go back. I quickly fixed my hair and makeup, then rang his doorbell. Lu Li looked me up and down, his eyes lingering on my short skirt and high heels. "Going clubbing?" Before I could answer, he dragged me into his room, forcing me to change into baggy jeans and flip-flops. Reluctantly, I followed him out the door, looking like his personal assistant. Truly, such was the cruelty of good looks in this world. Lu Li ordered my favorite barbecue, and I couldn't help but shower him with praise. Thoroughly impressed. But then I remembered our situation at work, my good mood fading slightly. If everyone found out I was dating my boss, wouldn't that be the ultimate embarrassment? I made a silent vow to keep our relationship under wraps and maybe apply for a transfer to another department. We were halfway through our meal, laughing and drinking, when a beautiful woman suddenly slid into the seat next to Lu Li. She held up a beer, smiling at him flirtatiously. "Lu Li, long time no see." I smelled trouble the second she opened her mouth. I sized her up from head to toe, my eyes narrowing. Total femme fatale, her eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings, oozing fake charm. "No need for us to see each other again," Lu Li said, his voice cool and dismissive, that same lazy smile on his lips. Yes, that's my man. This woman clearly had no sense of personal boundaries. She ignored Lu Li's obvious rejection, turning her attention to me instead, her tone dripping with condescension. "You're still so young, are you even legal?" I nearly choked on my beef skewer, but I just blinked innocently, channeling my inner sweet, naive girlfriend, and smiled brightly, showing all 8 teeth. "I'm Lu Li's girlfriend. So yes, I'm definitely an adult." I could see her hand tighten around her beer bottle, her knuckles whitening, but she quickly composed herself, turning back to Lu Li with a forced smile. "Never thought you'd go for this type." Lu Li ignored her completely. Defeated, she slunk away, muttering under her breath. But my curiosity was now through the roof. I raised an eyebrow at Lu Li, grinning mischievously. "Ex-girlfriend?" "Just some persistent admirer," he replied, taking a sip of his beer. For the rest of the night, I grilled him relentlessly from his elementary school days all the way to his 30s, trying to figure out just how many persistent admirers he'd had over the years. I suppose this was just the life of a certified heartthrob. As we walked home, I burped contentedly, then looked up at him, my eyes shining with curiosity. "Lu Li, what exactly do you like about me?" Lu Li looked down at me, his gaze softening. "Your honesty, your authenticity." I linked my arm through his, tugging him toward a secluded spot. The community basketball court empty and quiet at this hour of the night. I climbed onto his lap, cupping his face in my hands, and leaned in, whispering in his ear, my voice low and teasing. "Then let me show you just how authentic I can be." I pressed my lips to his, kissing him deeply. Wow, being the one to make the first move felt incredible. My right hand slid under his shirt, my fingers brushing against his rock-hard abs. The feeling was amazing. Too bad it was so dark. I would have loved to get a proper look. Before I could savor the moment, Lu Li's tongue slid into my mouth, deepening the kiss. His lips moving against mine with a hunger that took my breath away. His hands weren't idle, either one tangled in my hair, holding my head close, the other wrapped tightly around my waist, pulling me flush against him. Lu Li's kisses were so intense, so passionate, that I quickly melted into his arms, gasping for air, begging him to slow down. But he showed no mercy, kissing me harder, his lips trailing down my neck, sending shivers down my spine. His hand slid higher, his fingers brushing gently against my chest. He nipped at my earlobe, his voice low and gravelly, sending heat straight to my core. Want more? I shook my head, my eyes glistening with tears, breathless from his kisses. No more. I surrender. I'm sorry. The next second, Lu Li lifted me into his arms, bridal style. I wrapped my legs around his waist, my arms clinging to his neck, looking up at him through teary eyes. He leaned down, pressing a soft, lingering kiss to my lips. I'll take you home. I buried my face in his chest, my heart fluttering wildly. Lu Li really knew how to sweep a girl off her feet. Just thinking about our secret office romance made my blood race. I couldn't wait for what came next. Before you get any ideas, nothing else happened that night. Lu Li carried me home, gave me a sweet goodnight kiss, then headed back upstairs to his own place. Meanwhile, I lay in bed, kicking my legs in the air, giddy with excitement, unable to fall asleep for hours. The next morning, I showed up with huge dark circles under my eyes, only to be dragged by Jojo to help her pick out her wedding dress. Jojo stared at me, her eyes widening. Girl, you look like you've been running on empty. I grinned at her, my eyes twinkling with mischief. Let's just say, my happiness is off the charts. Even Zhao Yaxuan would be jealous. Jojo's wedding was scheduled for next month, and she'd been running around like a headless chicken lately, swamped with preparations. I told her I had the perfect candidate for a groomsman, but Jojo quickly cut me off, shaking her head vehemently. If you let Lu Li be a groomsman, he'll steal the groom's thunder. No way, I had to agree. After all, my boyfriend was a total showstopper, one of a kind. To prove what a thoughtful, caring girlfriend I could be, I volunteered to make breakfast for Lu Li every morning. I spent hours poring over recipes, simmering millet porridge and tremella soup every night before bed, then waking up half an hour earlier than usual just to make sure he got his love-filled breakfast. After a few days of this, Lu Li finally spoke up in the car one morning, his voice carefully neutral. Actually, I think the breakfast stand near the company is pretty good. I felt my eyes well up with tears. I'd tried so hard to make him a sweet, homemade breakfast only to have it backfire spectacularly. Jojo tried to cheer me up, patting my shoulder comfortingly. Come on. Having a girlfriend who tells him jokes for free. That's a steal for Lu Li. Who needs breakfast when you've got you? It hit me like a bolt of lightning. So that's why Lu Li had chosen me. Because I was funny. Because I told great jokes. Back at work, the workload was still just as heavy, but knowing my boss was also my boyfriend made every tedious task feel like a breeze. I'd find any excuse to pop into his office to discuss work, stealing a quick kiss when no one was looking, or sneaking a quick feel of his abs when we thought we were alone. Everyone was right. Sneaking around like this at work really did send your adrenaline sky high. It was thrilling. Whoever said office romances hurt your productivity was lying. If anything, it made me more motivated than ever. I'd happily work overtime every single day. 996. Theft. I'd work 007 with Lu Li if he asked me to. But once I started openly riding to and from work with Lu Li every day, I realized something surprising. No one at the office even cared. All that sneaking around, all that paranoia. For nothing. I secretly wished someone would catch me getting out of his car, then pull me aside, asking in hushed tones what was going on between us. I'd already rehearsed my response 100 times. I'd say it with just the right mix of casualness, shyness, and pride. Oh, him? He's my boyfriend. But no one ever gave me the chance to say it. The only person who kept pestering me about our relationship was Mom. She'd called me just yesterday, gushing about how she and Lu Li's mom had already picked out the perfect date for our engagement. When I told Lu Li about it, he just smiled and said, "Sounds good to me. Anytime you're ready." I was starting to think Lu Li owed me a huge debt from his past life or something. I asked Jojo if I had some kind of irresistible charm that I wasn't aware of. Jojo just laughed, replying, "More like you're oozing chaotic good energy. It's probably refreshing for him." Lu Li was truly a man of contradictions. Cold and aloof on the outside, but warm and passionate on the inside. He acted like an untouchable, celibate heartthrob in public, keeping everyone at arm's length. But when someone from another department dared to question my work in a meeting, he'd step in, subtly defending me without anyone even noticing. With me, he talked a mile a minute, rambling on about everything and nothing, his eyes lighting up whenever he made me laugh. Especially at night, when it was just the two of us, he was incredibly passionate. My favorite thing to do was tease him in his office, watching him struggle to maintain his cold, distant boss facade, fighting the urge to kiss me senseless right there in front of everyone. It was so thrilling. Who would have thought the untouchable Lu Li could be so cute, so playful when he was in love? I planned to introduce him to Jojo and the gang over the weekend, but those plans were derailed when I was suddenly sent on a 3-day business trip to Beijing. Lu Li couldn't come with me. He had an important research meeting to attend, that he promised he'd be the first person waiting for me at the airport when I got back. I couldn't help but wonder, would our little separation lead to something spicy when we finally reunited? Every single day I was in Beijing, I video called Lu Li. I told him, only seeing your face can give me the motivation to drag myself out of bed and go to work the next day. Lu Li chuckled, shaking his head at me through the screen. Am I your personal walking paycheck now? Please, his vision was way too narrow. When you were dating someone like Lu Li, who even needed money to avoid any awkwardness at work, and also to give us the chance to date openly without judgment, I jumped at the chance to transfer to a vacant position in another department with a promotion to boot. Who would have thought dating my boss would give me a career boost too? Go me. Right before I boarded the plane back home, Lu Li had texted me, sounding mysterious. Guess what surprise I've got waiting for you? Honestly, if you have to tell someone there's a surprise, is it even a surprise anymore? But I played along anyway, my mind racing with possibilities. Was he going to greet me with a huge bouquet of flowers? Or maybe set up a candlelit dinner at home? Not that it really mattered. I was just happy he was coming to pick me up. I'd even daydreamed about the perfect airport reunion, surrounded by the envious stares of onlookers. I'd run into his arms, and he'd lift me up, spinning me around, his eyes filled with longing. It would be like a scene straight out of a romance movie. But as it turned out, romance movies were total lies. I'd given him the wrong flight number. So, Lu Li had ended up waiting for me at the airport for 2 whole hours. But despite the mix-up, I still linked my arm through his, grinning from ear to ear, too happy to care about anything else. As soon as I got in the car, I spotted a bag of marinated snacks on the passenger seat, my eyes lighting up. Is this the big surprise you were talking about? You complained that the food in Beijing didn't agree with you, Lu Li said, his voice soft, and that you missed the taste of your favorite duck heads. I felt my eyes well up with tears. Okay, yes, the snacks were amazing, but a tiny part of me had secretly hoped for something a little more romantic. But then Lu Li pulled me into his arms, kissing me deeply, his lips moving against mine with a hunger that made my head spin, and I instantly forgot all about my silly disappointment. By the time we got back to my place, I barely had time to drop my luggage before Lu Li had me pressed against the door, kissing me again, his hands roaming freely over my body, sending shivers down my spine. His kisses were urgent, desperate, as if he'd been starving for my touch for years. I could feel how much he'd missed me in every single kiss. He lifted me up, my legs wrapping around his waist, and carried me straight to the bedroom, his lips never leaving mine. He kissed me slowly, reverently trailing soft, lingering kisses down my neck, my collarbone, my chest, his touch gentle yet possessive, making me gasp for air, my body arching into his. He whispered in my ear, his voice thick with desire, his breath warm against my skin. I missed you so much. That one sentence was all it took to make my head spin, my knees weakening, my entire body melting into his arms. The next thing I knew, I was lying in bed, wrapped in Lu Li's arms, my body clean and warm, my head resting on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. When I finally found my voice, I looked up at him, my eyes still hazy with sleep and something more. Are you satisfied now? Lu Li looked down at me, that familiar amused glint in his eyes, as if I'd just asked the most ridiculous question in the world, then pulled me closer, wrapping his arms tightly around me, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. I snuggled into his warm embrace, feeling like the luckiest girl in the world, my heart filled with so much happiness I thought it might burst. I stared at his handsome profile, resisting the urge to reach out and touch his face again, then finally drifted off to sleep, a smile on my lips. When I woke up the next morning, I was surprised to find a ring on my finger, a simple, elegant silver band with a tiny diamond sparkling in the sunlight. Lu Li smiled at me, his eyes soft with love. Now everyone will know you're taken. I rolled my eyes playfully, swatting his arm. You've got it backwards. I'm the one who looks harmless. You re the one who needs to be on guard. Don't go letting those flirty butterflies sweep you off your feet. The longer I dated Lu Li, the more I became convinced he had terrible taste in women. For one thing, he genuinely didn't think he was handsome. When I asked him who he thought was handsome, he'd answered without hesitation. Premier Joe. Which was fair. Premier Joe was not only handsome, but also an incredible human being. I'd also asked him if he still kept in touch with any of his ex-girlfriends. He'd looked at me like I was crazy, replying, "When a relationship ends, you cut ties. We deleted each other's contacts ages ago." That's how ID finally found out exactly how many girlfriends he'd had in the past. Haha, I was so clever. The transfer to the new department had gone smoothly. I'd settled in quickly and made new friends. But I couldn't help feeling a tiny bit sad. I no longer had an excuse to sneak into Lu Li's office to tease him, to steal quick kisses when no one was looking, or to sneak a feel of his abs under his shirt. But all sadness was forgotten when the weekend finally arrived, Jojo's wedding day. I was going to be her bridesmaid, and it would also be the first time Lu Li met my closest friends. I'd already practiced my reaction 100 times in my head. When everyone gushed over how handsome Lu Li was, I'd play it cool, shrugging casually and saying, "Looks aren't everything. We're together because we connect on a deeper level." But I never got the chance to say it, because I never could have imagined who else I'd run into at that wedding. My ex-boyfriend. What a total buzzkill. I'd had zero interest in acknowledging him, but fate was cruel. When Jojo and I made our final toast rounds, we stopped at his table. A woman shot me a smug, triumphant look, like she knew me personally, and couldn't wait to rub something in my face. Using my expert people-reading skills, I instantly clocked her. This must be my ex's current girlfriend. My annoyance level skyrocketed to 10,086. But as a professional bridesmaid, I plastered on a polite smile, held Jojo's bag, handed out cigarettes, and poured drinks, doing my best to ignore the pair of them. We'd broken up right after college graduation. Years ago. Who knew what garbage he'd been feeding his new girlfriend about me? Otherwise, she wouldn't have looked like she wanted to tear me to shreds. Fine. I could let that slide. But then she purposefully came over to toast me, and with a fake clumsy act, spilled her drink all over my dress. Newsflash. I wasn't someone to be messed with. And for the record, I didn't even know her. I'd blocked my ex the second we split. So why was she targeting me like this? Two could play this game. When she bent down, pretending to apologize and help me wipe the stain, I accidentally spilled my drink all over her chest, putting on my most innocent, pitiful expression. "Oh no. I'm so sorry," I slipped. I told the other bridesmaid to go on ahead with Jojo, then took Lu Li's arm, raising my voice just enough for them to hear. Ooh. Some people are just too good looking to have a mean bone in their body. Ugly people always have to stir up trouble, don't they? Lu Li just chuckled and led me away. The pair of them, clearly guilty, slunk off with their tails between their legs. After the wedding, I became an overnight legend in our college group chat. Even the straighter student who lived in the library popped up to send a bunch of meme reactions. And the girls I'd barely exchanged 2 words with over 4 years of college were all blowing up my phone, asking who the incredibly handsome guy by my side was. For a second, I felt like I'd won some kind of prestigious award that would be displayed on my alma mater's on a wall forever. I showed Lu Li all the messages, expecting him to be amused, but he just shrugged, looking totally unfazed. Right, of course he was. A certified heartthrob like him had been in the spotlight since he was a kid. He'd never understand the thrill of finally getting my moment to shine. One night, I was snuggled up on Lu Li's shoulder, binge-watching a drama. Lu Li wrapped his arms around me, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "How about you meet my parents this weekend?" But when we walked into his parents' huge, fancy apartment, I finally connected the dots. Wait a minute, had I actually bagged a rich guy? I immediately latched onto Lu Li's waist, looking up at him with stars in my eyes. Oh my God, sugar daddy. I don't want to work hard anymore. Lu Li flicked my forehead, rolling his eyes. You must have lost your mind. But who could have predicted who'd open the door for us? My mom. I'd imagined a formal, awkward, meeting the parents scenario. But instead, it turned into a family mahjong game. I was starting to suspect Lu Li's mom hadn't he invited me over to meet her. She'd just wanted an excuse to rope my mom into a game of mahjong. Since my dad and Lu Li's dad didn't play, it ended up being me, my mom, Lu Li, and his mom sitting around the table, playing the intense Sichuan-style mahjong game, Zuzan Dao Di, fight to the death. We barely touched our lunch. We played straight through from noon until night. Unsurprisingly, Lu Li and I were total newbies, so we got utterly demolished. Meanwhile, my mom and Lu Li's mom were having the time of their lives, winning piles of money off us left and right. For dinner, they suggested hot pot at home. So, Lu Li and I were drafted as the errand boys, sent to the supermarket to buy loads of ingredients. I was just shoveling a mouthful of duck intestines into my mouth when Lu Li's mom suddenly spoke up. Casual as can be. Lu Li and Moo should start thinking about their engagement, don't you think? The duck intestines nearly fell out of my mouth in shock. My mom immediately chimed in, and the two of them launched into a full-on discussion, planning dates, venues, guest lists, while Lu Li and I sat there like two outsiders, totally ignored. Well, if they weren't going to pay attention to me, I might as well enjoy my hot pot. I dug in with renewed enthusiasm. By the end of the meal, they'd made their decision. The engagement would be on New Year's Day. I turned to look at Lu Li, my eyes wide with disbelief. Lu Li just smiled back at me, looking completely satisfied. Wait, wasn't this moving way too fast? Getting engaged after only 6 months of dating? When we finally got back to Lu Li's place, I finally voiced my thoughts. To my surprise, Lu Li's smile faded instantly. He looked hurt, his voice turning cold. Do you think we're not right for each other? I answered carefully, poking his chest playfully. Which part are you asking about? If you mean the physical part, well, we're definitely compatible. 1 second, Lu Li was looking like a kicked puppy. The next, he'd pulled me into a tight hug, burying his face in my neck. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. After a long moment he spoke, his voice muffled. Kimu, I'm just in a hurry. So it wasn't just women who started panicking about settling down when they hit 30, even men felt the pressure too. But still, who would have thought I, Kimu, would have such an insanely handsome guy wrapped around my little finger? I snickered to myself, feeling a surge of pride. But seeing how sincere he was, I softened, patting his back gently. I'm scared you'll regret it later. After all, a girl had to give her handsome boyfriend a little bit of face, right? Lu Li pulled back to look at me, his eyes warm with affection. But I'll respect your decision, whatever you choose. Respect my decision, my foot. I was just being playfully shy. He should have taken a page out of Shen Yi's book, how he proposed to Zhao Zhao with that huge grand gesture. If he wanted to propose, he needed to do it properly, stat. But I never could have imagined that I wasn't the only silly, chaotic one in this relationship. Turns out, Lu Li was a total dork too. Like they always say, birds of a feather flock together. I dreamed of a magical fairy tale proposal, something romantic, tear-jerking, straight out of a movie. Instead, here's what happened. Lu Li and I were sitting on a bench by the river, kissing, when suddenly 2 people in giant baby costumes ran over and literally pulled us apart. Then, out of nowhere, a flash mob started dancing around us. Slowly, I realized what the dance was about. It was my life. The dancers acted out my childhood running around carefree as a baby. Then my elementary school days wrapping myself in a bedsheet like a martial arts hero's cape. Wearing my parents' oversized clothes and swinging a broom around like a sword. Middle school rushing from guitar lessons to dance classes. Writing letters to pen pals I'd met in magazines. And running to the mailbox to send them off. High school buried in textbooks in my school uniform. Pulling all-nighters to get into my dream university. College chasing after my favorite celebrities. Going to concerts. Traveling all across the country with my friends. After graduation, playing mahjong with my besties every chance I got. Going on road trips and decorating my first apartment all by myself. I stared, frozen in shock, tears welling up in my eyes. Then someone dragged me into the middle of the dance floor. Lu Li dropped down to one knee, took my hand, and kissed it gently. The crowd cheered, pushing us into a tight hug. Someone slipped a wedding veil over my head. I linked arms with Lu Li, and we acted out our wedding ceremony right there, surrounded by smiling strangers. Then the veil was lifted, and two little kids in cute outfits ran over to me, singing a sweet song about family. Next, the dancers transformed into elderly versions of us. I was pushed into a group of square dancers, while Lu Li sat on the sidelines, pretending to play games on his phone. Finally, the dance ended with the elderly us snuggling up together, holding hands, looking out at the river. The flash mob dispersed, leaving only Lu Li and me standing there by the bench. It was like nothing had happened, like the whole thing had been a beautiful dream. I knew this was his surprise for me. I did never in my wildest dreams imagine that someone would love me this much, that someone would value me enough to memorize every little detail of my life, then turn it into something so magical. In that moment, I realized I was the protagonist of his story. All those silly, random stories I told him in passing, he'd remembered every single one of them. He turned my ordinary life into something extraordinary. I thought he'd invite all our friends and family, propose to me surrounded by their cheers and well wishes. I never expected Lu Li to be this romantic. I told myself I wouldn't cry, but I couldn't help it. I buried my face in his shoulder and sobbed my heart out. Lu Li held me tightly, his voice soft in my ear. From now on, it'll be our life together. I wasn't there for your past, so I wanted to make it up to you, to make our shared story complete. No single word like touching or amazing could describe what I was feeling in that moment. For 25 years, I'd been just an ordinary girl, growing up in an ordinary family, living an ordinary life, going to school, making friends, falling in and out of love. I had parents who loved me, a handful of loyal best friends. I dated a few guys, and I'd always dreamed of finding someone to spend the rest of my life with. I'd imagined he'd be ordinary too. We'd get married when the time felt right, and live a quiet, happy life together. I never expected that at 25, I'd meet Lu Li. He was the variable in my ordinary life, the plot twist I never saw coming. From that silly, chaotic first encounter at the furniture store, to our awkward dinners, to our thrilling secret office romance, we'd gotten to know each other slowly, falling in love bit by bit. Sure, he'd fulfilled every superficial fantasy I'd ever had about dating a handsome guy. But deep down, I'd always thought this was just a fling, a fun detour before I got back to my ordinary life. I never imagined that from the moment we got together, Lu Li would be so completely, utterly mine, loving me, adoring me, cherishing me like I was the most precious thing in the world. I looked up at him, my eyes filled with tears, my voice wobbly. Lu Li, what other surprises do you have up your sleeve that I don't know about? Lu Li laughed, wiping the tears from my cheeks, then pulled me into a tight hug, spinning me around in the moonlight. Oh, baby girl, you've got no idea how many more surprises I've got in store for you. I wrapped my arms around his waist, staring up at the night sky. The moon was perfectly round tonight, bright and beautiful, hanging low above the river. They always say that someday, the right person will walk into your life. He'll see you at your most beautiful, and he'll love every single part of your story. The good, the bad, and the messy. You'll hold hands and cross every hurdle together, never to be separated again. All those wonderful surprises? I guess I'll just have to spend the rest of my life finding them out. The end. Lu Li's side story. I never expected to run into Ki Mu at the furniture store. She was the same as ever, cheerful, bubbly, radiating that unapologetically confident energy that made her impossible to ignore. But that wasn't the first time I'd seen her. Our first meeting was years earlier, back when I was studying abroad in the UK. I'd been sitting by the River Thames, working on my thesis, when a group of loud, laughing Chinese tourists plopped down at the table behind me. Among them was Ki Mu. They were chattering away in our hometown dialect, and instead of finding it annoying, I felt a warm, familiar tug in my chest. They were arguing over how to take the perfect photo, one that looked artsy and poetic, but not too try-hard. According to Ki Mu, the ideal photo should capture a sense of quiet melancholy, but with a hint of hidden joy. She insisted that when you picked up your coffee cup, you had to angle your face just right so that your profile looked like you were gazing thoughtfully at the world, like you had all the answers. That's exactly what she said. Her friend's boyfriend groaned, complaining that her standards were way too high. To be honest, I thought so too. I couldn't wrap my head around why a photo needed to be so complicated. But then Ki-moo decided to demonstrate herself. She jumped up from her seat, striking pose after pose, twisting and turning to find the perfect angle, completely oblivious to the amused stares of passersby. Watching her, I couldn't help but smile. She was weirdly adorable. They messed around for ages before finally being satisfied with their photos, then left laughing and chatting, disappearing into the crowd. The world is truly small. I never thought I'd see her again years later, back in our hometown. I first noticed her when she was decorating her apartment. She'd left a handwritten apology note and a small gift for every neighbor upstairs and downstairs, apologizing in advance for the noise from the renovations. She was just as chatty as I remembered, always talking a mile a minute, always full of energy, always with that mischievous glint in her eye. She'd buy drinks and snacks for the construction workers, batting her eyelashes and flirting with them, begging them to make her apartment look super fancy, like something out of a magazine. For weeks, I'd see her bustling around the building carrying stacks of delivery boxes up to her apartment all by herself, apologizing profusely to everyone in the elevator, making silly faces at the little kids until they giggled. She was always surrounded by people, or wearing a face mask, so she never noticed me watching her from the corner. After wrapping up my business overseas, I moved back home for good. I hadn't even considered applying for a job at her company. But once again, fate had other plans. I saw her on my first day at work laughing and joking with her colleagues, telling them about a hilarious variety show she'd watched the night before, even mimicking the meme faces from the show. In that moment, I made up my mind. I was going to stay. When I got my hands on the employee list for her department, I wasn't surprised to find her name there. She was perfect for this department, bright, creative, full of life. I stared at her photo on the screen, a smile tugging at my lips, already imagining how much more interesting my life would be with her in it. Before we officially met again, we ran into each other at that furniture store. It made me wonder, why was Ki-moo popping up in my life so frequently? Maybe it's true what they say. When you start paying attention to someone, they suddenly appear everywhere. She was exactly as I remembered her: chaotic, silly, and utterly charming. I never expected our first official meeting to be so entertaining. But it confirmed one thing: she hadn't changed one bit over the years. At the company dinner party, I deliberately asked her to sit next to me. I wanted to see what other tricks she had up her sleeve. I'd never met a girl with such a dramatic range of facial expressions before. Watching her grit her teeth, trying to hold back her sassy remarks when someone annoyed her, then forcing herself to smile politely instead. It was weirdly endearing. I'll admit it, I'd had my fair share of admirers over the years. I'd even dated a few girls, but they'd all been the same: proud, stubborn, never willing to back down first. So meeting someone like Ki-moo was a breath of fresh air. At first, she was clearly nervous around me, fumbling over her words, blushing whenever I made eye contact with her. But that was fine. I was in no hurry. Good things were worth waiting for. I'll be honest, aside from that chance encounter at the furniture store, every other run-in we had was completely intentional. The daily rides to and from work? All planned. When she first got in my car, she'd try to sit in the back seat like a polite subordinate. I'd called her out on it immediately, making her sit up front with me. She'd laughed it off, saying, "My bad. Wouldn't you want people to think I'm treating my boss like a chauffeur? That'd be so awkward." From that day on, she talked my ear off the entire drive to work, rambling about everything from the terrible takeout she'd had for lunch the day before to her big, ambitious life plans. I didn't mind one bit. I'd gotten so used to living a quiet, solitary life. Having someone burst into my world, filling it with noise and laughter and life, it felt like a gift. At first, I just found her interesting. But as we spent more time together, I realized she was so much more than that. She was actually brilliant at her job, sharp, perceptive, with ideas that always took me by surprise. And in her everyday life, she was just this cute, silly little girl who loved to laugh and make people happy. How could anyone not fall for her? I never dated anyone like her before, but I knew I had to make my move fast. I never expected my aunt to play matchmaker for me. She told me she had the perfect girl to introduce me to, and I'd immediately refused. I wasn't interested in blind dates. But then my aunt sent me a photo of Kaimu. I couldn't help but laugh. The universe really did work in mysterious ways. In that moment, I knew Kimu and I were meant to be. The blind date was supposed to be a casual get-together, just an excuse to spend more time with her, to let her get used to the idea of us being together before I made my move. But then her best friend Jojo had gone and spilled the beans, forcing me to confess my feelings right then and there. Not that I was complaining. I'd taken the opportunity and run with it. Even my notoriously picky mom had fallen for Kimu's charm. She kept saying that a girl like her, cheerful, outgoing, always laughing, was exactly what I needed to cure my quiet, reserved self. Kimu was so soft and warm, especially when I held her in my arms. She wasn't even remotely fat, but she felt so cuddly, so perfect, like she was made to fit right into my embrace. I never wanted to let her go. Being with her was so easy, so comfortable. Every day was filled with laughter. She'd ask me the silliest questions, ramble on about the most random things, and I'd listen to every single word, hanging on her every syllable. I fell for her deeper and deeper, until I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. Luli's side story: I never expected to run into Kimu at the furniture store. She was the same as ever, cheerful, bubbly, radiating that unapologetically confident energy that made her impossible to ignore. But that wasn't the first time I'd seen her. Our first meeting was years earlier, back when I was studying abroad in the UK. I'd been sitting by the River Thames, working on my thesis, when a group of loud, laughing Chinese tourists plopped down at the table behind me. Among them was Kimu. They were chattering away in our hometown dialect, and instead of finding it annoying, I felt a warm, familiar tug in my chest. They were arguing over how to take the perfect photo, one that looked artsy and poetic, but not too try-hard. According to Kimu, the ideal photo should capture a sense of quiet melancholy, but with a hint of hidden joy. She insisted that when you picked up your coffee cup, you had to angle your face just right so that your profile looked like you were gazing thoughtfully at the world, like you had all the answers. That's exactly what she said. Her friend's boyfriend groaned, complaining that her standards were way too high. To be honest, I thought so too. I couldn't wrap my head around why a photo needed to be so complicated. But then Kimu decided to demonstrate herself. She jumped up from her seat, striking pose after pose, twisting and turning to find the perfect angle, completely oblivious to the amused stares of passers-by. Watching her, I couldn't help but smile. She was weirdly adorable. They messed around for ages before finally being satisfied with their photos, then left laughing and chatting, disappearing into the crowd. The world is truly small. I never thought I'd see her again years later, back in our hometown. I first noticed her when she was decorating her apartment. She'd left a handwritten apology note and a small gift for every neighbor upstairs and downstairs, apologizing in advance for the noise from the renovations. She was just as chatty as I remembered, always talking a mile a minute, always full of energy, always with that mischievous glint in her eye. She'd buy drinks and snacks for the construction workers, batting her eyelashes and flirting with them, begging them to make her apartment look super fancy, like something out of a magazine. For weeks, I'd see her bustling around the building carrying stacks of delivery boxes up to her apartment all by herself, apologizing profusely to everyone in the elevator, making silly faces at the little kids until they giggled. She was always surrounded by people, or wearing a face mask, so she never noticed me watching her from the corner. After wrapping up my business overseas, I moved back home for good. I hadn't even considered applying for a job at her company, but once again, fate had other plans. I saw her on my first day at work laughing and joking with her colleagues, telling them about a hilarious variety show she'd watched the night before, even mimicking the meme faces from the show. In that moment, I made up my mind. I was going to stay. When I got my hands on the employee list for her department, I wasn't surprised to find her name there. She was perfect for this department, bright, creative, full of life. I stared at her photo on the screen, a smile tugging at my lips, already imagining how much more interesting my life would be with her in it. Before we officially met again, we ran into each other at that furniture store. It made me wonder, why was Kimu popping up in my life so frequently? Maybe it's true what they say. When you start paying attention to someone, they suddenly appear everywhere. She was exactly as I remembered her: chaotic, silly, and utterly charming. I never expected our first official meeting to be so entertaining, but it confirmed one thing. She hadn't changed one bit over the years. At the company dinner party, I deliberately asked her to sit next to me. I wanted to see what other tricks she had up her sleeve. I'd never met a girl with such a dramatic range of facial expressions before. Watching her grit her teeth, trying to hold back her sassy remarks when someone annoyed her, then forcing herself to smile politely instead. It was weirdly endearing. I'll admit it, I'd had my fair share of admirers over the years. I'd even dated a few girls, but they'd all been the same. Proud, stubborn, never willing to back down first. So meeting someone like Ki-moo was a breath of fresh air. At first, she was clearly nervous around me, fumbling over her words, blushing whenever I made eye contact with her. But that was fine. I was in no hurry. Good things were worth waiting for. I'll be honest, aside from that chance encounter at the furniture store, every other run-in we had was completely intentional. The daily rides to and from work, all planned. When she first got in my car, she tried to sit in the back seat like a polite subordinate. I'd called her out on it immediately, making her sit up front with me. She'd laughed it off, saying, "My bad. Wouldn't he want people to think I'm treating my boss like a chauffeur? That'd be so awkward." From that day on, she talked my ear off the entire drive to work, rambling about everything from the terrible takeout she'd had for lunch the day before to her big, ambitious life plans. I didn't mind one bit. I'd gotten so used to living a quiet, solitary life, having someone burst into my world, filling it with noise and laughter and life. It felt like a gift. At first, I just found her interesting. But as we spent more time together, I realized she was so much more than that. She was actually brilliant at her job, sharp, perceptive, with ideas that always took me by surprise. And in her everyday life, she was just this cute, silly little girl who loved to laugh and make people happy. How could anyone not fall for her? I'd never dated anyone like her before, but I knew I had to make my move fast. I never expected my aunt to play matchmaker for me. She told me she had the perfect girl to introduce me to, and I'd immediately refused. I wasn't interested in blind dates. But then my aunt sent me a photo of Ki-moo. I couldn't help but laugh. The universe really did work in mysterious ways. In that moment, I knew Ki-moo and I were meant to be. The blind date was supposed to be a casual get-together, just an excuse to spend more time with her, to let her get used to the idea of us being together before I made my move. But then her best friend Jojo had gone and spilled the beans, forcing me to confess my feelings right then and there. Not that I was complaining. I'd taken the opportunity and run with it. Even my notoriously picky mom had fallen for Ki-moo's charm. She kept saying that a girl like her, cheerful, outgoing, always laughing, was exactly what I needed to cure my quiet, reserved self. Ki-moo was so soft and warm, especially when I held her in my arms. She wasn't even remotely fat, but she felt so cuddly, so perfect, like she was made to fit right into my embrace. I never wanted to let her go. Being with her was so easy, so comfortable. Every day was filled with laughter. She'd ask me the silliest questions, ramble on about the most random things, and I'd listen to every single word, hanging on her every syllable. I fell for her deeper and deeper, until I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. Post-marriage side story. Ki-moo, get over here. Just a minute. I'm in the middle of a crucial battle. I was curled up on the couch, completely glued to my phone, locked in a tense game of Mobile Legends. This was the final round, and I was not about to lose. By the time I finally won the game and looked up, Luli was gone. I padded over to the bedroom, pushing the door open cautiously. To my surprise, Luli was lying on the bed, shirtless, staring up at the ceiling with a dramatic pout on his face. When he saw me, he sighed heavily, his voice dripping with fake sadness. "Looks like my body doesn't appeal to you anymore." I immediately kicked off my slippers, jumping onto the bed and snuggling into his arms, nuzzling his chest. I pinched his waist playfully, grinning up at him. "Oh, your body is still very appealing. I just had to put it on pause for a bit. Otherwise, once I start touching you, I'd never be able to stop." I cupped his face in my hands and planted a big, loud smooch on his lips. Tastes amazing, as always. But before I could tease him any further, Luli flipped us over, pinning me beneath him, his eyes darkening with desire. Ah, yes, adult life was truly simple, straightforward, and incredibly delicious. Luli really was impossible to resist.